All right, hello everybody. Today we're getting into 1.1 Basic Geometry Terms, Part 1. Just a little reminder on notes. Make sure you're doing these notes on a separate sheet of paper. All right, they will be turned in at the end of the triad, and you will also be able to use them on your test and quizzes. All right, this first section, and actually the first section in most new chapters, is going to have a lot of new terms and definitions. So there's quite a bit of writing at the beginning of this one. So I kind of apologize for that. But you'll be able to, pause your screen and copy down everything you see here, and then we'll move on. All right. Let's scroll down here and just kind of take a look at the first few terms. All right, we have a point, a line, and a plane. Okay, so go ahead and pause your video, take a couple minutes, and copy down everything you see here, and then we'll come back and I'll go over and kind of let you know what's going on here. Okay, so first thing we have here is a point. Okay, it says a point is a specific location. It has no dimension and is represented by a dot. Okay, so pretty straightforward. A point, it's a dot. And the ways of naming your point is just literally that, point P. If we have a P next to it, it's point P. If there's an A next to it, it's point A. Okay, easy enough. All right, next thing, it says a line is connected a line is a connected straight path. Okay, it has no thickness and it continues forever in both directions. All right, so that's maybe the big thing right there, the forever in both directions. These arrows on this line imply that it goes forever in both directions. Okay, and just maybe something to point out, this line has 2 points on it, right? Okay, this particular line, point A and point B. All right, here's a few different ways of naming a line. We can name a line by using the letter that is kind of off to the side here. Okay, so this is an L. So we could call this thing line L if we wanted to. All right, the more typical way of naming a line is using 2 points on the line to name it. And you can see we can call this thing line AB, and then we can also do the reverse and call this thing line BA. All right. One thing you'll see a lot is the shorthand symbols for the words line and some other words we'll get into. Okay, this right here, this symbol with the 2 arrows on it. Okay, that is the symbol for line. Okay, so they're saying, okay, line AB, line BA. When you guys get directions on these types of problems, this is the most typical way that they'll write it out. Okay, so that is a line. The next main thing we have here is called a plane. Okay, it says a plane is a flat surface. It has no thickness and it extends forever in all directions. All right, so here is an example of a plane. Just know, even though it kind of looks like it's a box here, this plane would technically go in all directions forever. You can just think of a plane as just like a flat piece of paper, kind of. All right, and there's a few ways of naming a plane. Okay, the first way is using kind of like a line where there's a little letter off to the side. We can use this little letter off to the side of a plane to name it. Okay, so we got an R here. We can call this thing plane R. Okay, but the most typical way of naming a plane is using 3 points on the plane. 3 points. All right, and you can see they have 3 points, X, Y, and Z. So we can call this thing plane X, Y, Z. All right, and just so you know, the order of those letters doesn't necessarily matter. We could have called it plane, ZYX or YXZ or whatever. So just as long as you have 3 points, you can name a plane. Okay, so let's move on. We have, I think, 2 more of these to look at. All right, so here's some other terms. So if you have not yet, go ahead and pause the video and take a minute more and copy these down. Okay, so we have here a line segment and array. All right, one, I guess, key thing to kind of keep in mind is, what is the difference between a line that we saw on the last slide and a line segment or array? They all kind of look a lot alike, but they're technically all different. So let's get into it. It says A line segment, or sometimes just called a segment, is a portion of a line consisting of 2 points called endpoints, okay, and all points between them. Okay, so you can think of a line segment as just kind of a piece of a line, okay, a portion of it. All right, and you can see, it just goes from one point to another. Notice there's no arrows pointing off in both directions. Though even if there were arrows pointing off in both directions, we would still consider this part of it from here to here, this blue thing, we would still consider that a segment of this line, just so you know. Okay, so yeah, we got a line segment, and just like a line, there's a few ways of naming it, and it's very similar. We can use 2 letters on a segment to name it. We can call this thing segment CD, or we can flip it around and we can call it segment DC. All right, I would say the big thing to take away from the ways of naming is the symbol for segment. All right, notice we just have this, I want to use the word line, but then it kind of gets confusing. But we have this symbol right here. Notice there's no arrows on the ends of it like there were when we had the symbol for a line. All right, so that is the symbol for a segment. Okay, so this would read segment D or CB or segment DC. Okay, the last one we have is array. It says array is a portion of a line that starts at a point, the end point, and continues forever in one direction. All right, so just to kind of compare it, if you guys remember, a line goes in both directions forever. That's what those 2 arrows imply. Okay, a ray goes in one direction forever, and you can see, obviously it's going in this direction forever. All right, so that's what array is. Here's the big thing: when you go to name array, you cannot name it forward and backwards like you could a line and a line segment. All right. If you notice, the only names we have for this thing is ray PQ. All right. And the reason why is when you go to name a ray, you need to first start with the end point of the ray, which would be P. And then you need to use a point that your ray is going through, which would be Q. So that's why we have to call this thing ray PQ. All right. And then the shorthand, last thing, the shorthand, or I guess the symbol for array would be this symbol here with an arrow on one end of it. All right, so I guess the best summary, because this is what you're going to see the most, is the different symbols. Symbol for a line, arrows on both ends. Symbol for a segment, no arrows. And the symbol for array, 1 arrow. Okay, it's just things you need to know. So when you read a direction and you see this thing, you're not thinking, oh, line PQ. No, you're thinking ray PQ. All right, so there's our definitions. Let's take a look at a few example problems. Okay, so go ahead, pause your recording, go ahead and copy the directions, get this EX, stands for example in the corner, and we'll try this together. All right, so this is asking us to draw 2 points J and K, then draw a line through them. Remember that a line shows arrows on both ends. All right, so pretty simple. Let's give it a try. Do this along with me. So it's saying, all right, draw 2 points J and K. So it doesn't really matter where I draw them. There's point J, and I'm going to put point K over here. And then it says, then draw a line through them. All right, so if you have a ruler, by the way, you could, line it up and get a nice straight line, or if you want to use an ID card or something like that. All right, but let me see. Since this thing says draw a line through them, since it's a line, I want to make sure there's arrows on both ends. So there we go. And actually, I could probably make that a little fatter, huh? Let's try this. That looks a little nicer. Okay, and there it is. We just drew a line. All right, and we can call that thing line JK. We could call it line KJ, which, by the way, let's go ahead and write the names of it next to it. Might as well. Okay, so line JK, and we could also call it line KJ. Okay, and normally we'll use the shorthand like that when we name things. I won't necessarily write like line JK because it's just easier. All right, so yeah, nice simple example. Let's see what we got next. All right, so let's try another one. Again, go ahead, pause your video, put example, get the directions, and then we'll try this together. Okay, so it's asking us to draw 2 points JK again. This time, draw the line segment with endpoints JK. All right, so let's go ahead and draw our 2 points one more time. So there's point J, there's point K. All right, this time draw the line segment with endpoints JK. Well, since this is a line segment, I know that this is not going to be, going in both directions forever like a line would be. It's just going to be contained within J and K. So line segment, I just need to do this. Okay, and now this is considered, by the way, there's still little arrows in there. Let's make this look better. Okay, there we go. All right, so there is segment JK, and real quick off to the side, let's go ahead and get the names written for it. So using the symbol for segment, JK, and let's give it the other name, KJ. All right. And we don't always name things twice. I'm just kind of having you guys practice that. All right, cool. So yeah, pretty simple examples there. What do we got next? All right, so here is a practice problem in top left corner. Just a reminder, these are problems that you will try on your own. All right, so again, go ahead, write practice 1, get the directions, okay, and then I'm gonna pause the video for you, have you try the problem, enter in your answer, though we'll see how that works when it comes to drawing stuff. But yeah, go ahead, try this one on your own, and then we'll look it over. All right, so hopefully you're able to try this out, and it's asking you to draw a point K again, and draw a ray from endpoint K. Plot a point J along the ray, all right? So kind of weird, but when you get directions like this, just take it one step at a time. Let's just start with the first thing. Draw a point K, okay. Point K. Okay, and now it's saying draw a ray from endpoint K. All right, so there's telling us K is the endpoint, and we're doing a ray, which just a quick reminder, flipping back real quick, a ray is, I guess I want to use the word line, but it's not a line. All right, but it goes from one endpoint, and it just goes in one direction forever. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to get my fancy little drawing tools. Let's see, let's try that one. All right, so I'm going from the endpoint, and I'm going to the right, putting an arrow there to show it goes in that direction forever. And the last thing, it's saying to plot a point J along the ray. So somewhere along the ray, doesn't really matter where you put it. I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to put point J. Okay, it didn't ask us, but let's go ahead and add the name for, our ray here. All right, so I can call this thing ray KJ. Okay, the symbol for ray, remember, that arrow in one direction, and KJ. Here's a quick question. Can I also call this thing ray JK? What do you guys think? Okay, I can hear you. If you say something, I can hear you, I promise. No, I cannot, okay? Because if you guys remember, when you name a ray, you have to start with its endpoint, and J is not the endpoint of this ray, which, by the way, if I were to have a ray, JK, it would be something like this. That would be an endpoint. It would go through K and in this direction. So, that red ray would be ray JK. Okay, so yeah, just a single name for this thing. So if you want to leave that in your notes and maybe just kind of show yourself, no, that doesn't work, that's not a bad thing to have in your notes. I like that. Also, notes, if you want to add anything to it, you don't just have to do what I have here. So feel free to put in whatever you'd like. If you want to highlight things, I like to use a lot of different colors when I'm doing my notes. If you want to get some like colored pencils or markers, if that's your thing, go for it. Okay, so practice problem number 2. Again, I'm gonna have you guys try this on your own. So go ahead and copy down those directions, get the practice 2, and we'll have you guys try this out. So go ahead and do that. All right, so now that you've done it on your own, let's go ahead and try it together. So this thing is saying draw 3 points J, K, M so that they are not all on the same line. Okay, not all on the same line. So what they're kind of saying is, when we write out these 3 points, we want them to just be kind of scattered about. All right, so let's go ahead and put, okay, J here. I'm going to put K over here, and let's put M down here. Okay, by the way, if we were to put these all on the same line, we probably would have like lined M up somewhere over here, and a line would have gone through those, but we don't want that. Okay, so we got M down here. And it's saying next, then draw the plane that contains the 3 points. You might also put a script letter such as, I guess we would say beta for that. I think these are supposed to be those type of words on your plane. Okay, so it's just saying, draw the plane that contains these. When we draw planes, normally we do kind of like a slanted rectangle, which has a technical name that we'll learn later on in the year. Okay, but we'll call it a slanted rectangle for now. So I'm going to just kind of do something like that. All right, let me get rid of that arrow. Okay, so like that. All right, so there we go. There is a plane that contains the 3 points. And then it's also saying you might also put a script letter. So let's put that beta or B down in the bottom left corner here. That would be another way we could name this thing. Okay, so speaking of naming it, let's go ahead and do it. Okay, remember when we name planes, we just need to use 3 points on the plane, which by the way, say this thing had more points. Say this also had point F, this had point Z, whatever. Okay, we would only need to pick 3 of these points. We wouldn't use all 5 of them. All right, we could call it plane JFK, JMZ, whatever 3 points. All right, but for this example, we just have 3 points. So let's use them. All right, there's no fancy symbol for plane, so let's just go ahead and write out the word. So this thing would be called plane, and we can use any order. I'm just going to use J, K, M. That's a terrible M. Let's try that again. Okay, so there's a name for it. Another name we could use is this little letter in the lower corner. We don't do this very often, just so you know, as far as naming them this way, but we could. So let's go ahead and call it plane. And I guess we'll keep calling this a beta, plane beta or plane B, whatever. Okay, cool. So that is, how you draw these very like fundamental pieces of geometry. If you could imagine points and lines and segments and all this stuff, it is the bread and butter of geometry. That's why we're starting with it, obviously. All right, let's see where we're going from here. Okay, the last thing, let's see, is this the last thing? Yeah. The last thing I got is a think, pair, share. You guys saw in that last video, this is normally something I would have you just kind of look at in class. You would talk with another student. So maybe we'll talk about this if we're learning synchronously, if I'm seeing you in person. Okay, but just take a look at it and let's think about it for a second. So this is saying in practice 1, okay, would ray JK be the same as ray KJ? Why or why not? Okay, so back to practice 1. Okay, we kind of already answered this question, right? Okay, we realized no, ray KJ is not the same ray as ray JK. Okay, they would be 2 completely different things because we have to start with the endpoint of a ray to name it. All right, and you guys remember I drew it, this would be ray JK if I could draw a straight line. All right, so kind of answered that one already. Let's take a look at number 2. In practice 2, when you name a plane using 3 letters, does the order of the letters matter? All right, well, I guess I should have looked at these 2 because I kind of already answered these questions. So think about it for a second. What do you think? Did the order of the letters on our plane matter? Did I have to call this thing plane JKM? All right, hopefully you're thinking, no, doesn't matter. I could have called it plane KMJ, MKJ, whatever. All right, so no, doesn't matter. All right, guys, so that's our first lesson here. That is maybe a little shorter than our typical, though there was a lot of writing at the front, so that's why I made not a lot of examples and practice problems because you guys were writing so much at the beginning. So yeah, normally our lessons, they'll maybe have a few more examples and practice problems for us to try out, but yeah, a nice simple one here for us to get started this year. Okay, so hopefully you're feeling good on this, and I will talk to you guys in class later. Thank you.